Welcome to Rooted with Rachel. My name is Rachel Boucher, and this is where you'll find fresh joy for your journey. A couple weeks ago, we looked at the first part of Psalm 91:1 and how this speaks to our trials and difficult situations. If you did not listen or read Come and Dwell Part 1, I encourage you to go and do that because it will give you context for Part 2. In Part 1, we learned that the shelter of the Most High is not just a place we run to when we're in trouble, although that is our privilege, but it's a place we dwell, we inhabit and reside in the shelter of El Elyon, God Most High. Today we're going to talk about the second part of Psalm 91 verse 1. So the first part says, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High," and the second part says, "will abide in the shadow of the Almighty." This is where all of this comes together and forms a complete thought in our hearts and reaches to those places where we feel lost, beaten, bruised, and broken. If you notice, there's a cause and effect that seems to be underlying in this verse. If you dwell in the shelter of the Most High, you will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. As we looked at the word dwell in the previous episode, we learned that it focuses more on location and permanence. We make our home, we settle, we remain, we sit down. Instead of just passing through, we set up permanent residence. It's where we position ourselves. Abide is a little different. The word abide focuses more on nearness and presence, where dwell focuses on our permanent position. As we choose to place ourselves in His presence, abide is staying close to God, with the emphasis on God choosing to remain with us. As we dwell, as we place ourselves in the shelter of the Most High, living closely with Him, not just in times of trouble, but always, the result is that God's provision is His shadow that covers us in all seasons. We don't run to the shadow when we're in trouble. We remain in the shelter. And because of that remaining and staying, His shadow falls on us and we are protected. Not protected necessarily from any and all evil, but protected in spite of evil. Shadow in that day would have meant protection because the sun was so blazing hot. Trees that cast a shadow would be a nice reprieve from the heat of the sun. It protected a weary traveler or someone working outside. The sun was still there. In the same way, we will experience evil in this fallen, sinful world. But we can be hopeful that when we dwell in the shelter of the Most High, we will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Which brings us to another question. Why does the psalmist use Almighty instead of Most High? We saw that God Most High speaks to His sovereign authority over all things. Almighty, El Shaddai, speaks of His power and sufficiency. We live and dwell in the shelter of the Most High, the one who is sovereignly over all and holds complete authority over every circumstance in our lives, whether good or evil. And because we live in the shelter of the Most High, we abide and are safe in the shadow of the Almighty, the one who is sufficient to keep us safe even in evil. Psalm 23:4 says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." He is our shade at our right hand. It's close and personal. This picture paints with brushstrokes of a nurturing tone, which is very personal. The psalmist is combining two truths in this verse. El Elyon, God Most High, is sovereignly reigning over all things and is a strong shelter for us to stay always. El Shaddai, God Almighty, is close and personal, protecting and nurturing us in the storm. The heat of the sun is not removed, but when we shelter in the Most High, we have a shadow provided from this shelter in the Almighty that touches our lives in a very personal way, right where we are at. So if you feel like you are being beaten down by the sun and the pressures of life through your circumstances, and you feel like you're walking through the shadow of death, know this: God Most High is your shelter forever. He is a reliable place to dwell and live forever. And because of that, he shadows you by the power of the Almighty, right where you're at, right in the middle of the hard, right in the middle of the sun beating down on you and zapping you of any energy you have. He brings a nurturing and refreshing shadow. Dwell in his shelter and delight in his shadow. His shelter provides a life-giving shadow.